There we go. Hey, welcome everybody. It's me, Beck. We're here for Spirituality for Your Mother, and today I have the awesome opportunity and honor to interview my friend Francis, and somebody that I respect who's been doing a lot of great work, a lot of healing work, and has really just done some cutting edge things that I think you'll be excited to hear about today. And also has had an interesting spiritual path that I think will be enlightening to those of you who are listening. So I'm not going to give you her full biography. I'm going to let Frances kind of give you a little bit of that. And then I will put a link to all of her websites, how you can get in touch with her, Order of Hildegard, and all the things post recording. But Frances, welcome aboard. Tell us, give us your bio and all the fun stuff.
Okay, gosh, thank you, Beck. This is an honor and so fun to be here with you. I'm delighted. Um, wow, yeah. So am I go by Frances Smathers now. That's kind of new to go back to maiden name, and I am. We're going. I'm the founder, and as we say, somewhat lightly, but is also kind of taking root, the wilderness abbess of the Order of Hildegard, which is a passion project born out of grief and a desire for things to be different in the world. My background, I'll tell you more about that in a minute. My background is in a very early call to ministry. I was a United Methodist minister after doing some social work as an undergrad and some really challenging work as a result of that interest. And then kind of traveling around the country, settling in to take care of my grandparents and going to their church for a few years, I was like, I really love church. I've grown up in the church. I come from a legacy of United Methodist ministers, even a circuit riding grandfather. And I never thought about, I mean, I thought about being a minister when I was younger. My parents always said, do that. But if you want to, you can do whatever you want, kind of thing. And I started thinking about it again, felt the call, and went into United Methodist ministry. The thing was, I had a really easy upbringing. I had really great parents. They told me I could be anything, do anything. I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I would be so supported and no obstacles. And of course, there were just lots and lots of obstacles, and a lot of my privilege hit me in the face. Um, and there was a lot of pain. There was a lot of loss. And so I left. I left the church. I left the United Methodist Church of my own decision. Went back into social work for a number of years, and there's a long story there I could get into. And you probably want to hear a little bit more of that, but let's just, for now, I'll say bumps. Lots of adult bumps, lots of bruises and hurts and grief. And eventually, the Order of Hildegard was sort of born in my heart. So now oh, now I can't believe it, but after feeling this sort of dramatic call into creating something new in the wilderness for people who have felt like they're on the outside of the church, they haven't been encouraged in spiritual leadership or community leadership for that matter because of their gender, sexuality, ability, allyship, their color of their skin, their demographics, whatever they may be. Um, because of some intersectionality of all those, um, they didn't feel comfortable in or fully supported in becoming the most that they could be in leadership. And so I wanted to, based on my own grief and my own healing, create a place to develop leaders who had been pushed aside. Because I really think that they carry the gold. And that was what drove the vision of the Order of Hildegard.
Absolutely love that phrase you said, carry the gold. Would you be willing to expound on that phrase some more, what it means for you?
Yeah, yeah. For a long time, I walked with this image of the exile's gold. It was I like images and visions. In fact, before I start any project, I put the cart before the horse and I create the Instagram, post because I have to see something. And I like images and meaning. For me, there was something about the word exile before it was being used a lot. This is before deconstruction really hit um, the mainstream, so to speak. And I kept resonating with that word exile. I felt like an exile because of the short story I haven't shared. But in that space of exile, um, I was excommunicated or churched or whatever you want to call it from a community where I did not fit and didn't realize I didn't fit until it was too late. Um, in that space of exile, I discovered that the divine, the holy, God, whatever word, for me was a very present, daily, like feeding me in the wilderness, staying with me in every breath kind of presence. And I discovered gold in that season of like immense suffering and isolation. Um, and I started thinking, wow, there's a lot of people who have gone through this, but I didn't think that at first. I actually thought I was the only one. But then after a season, I realized there's so many people who have gone through this. I thought I was the only one who would never be able to talk about it. What is the gold all of these folks are carrying? And as through the years, this was 2013, and so it's been 13 years, as I've discovered all of these groups of folks who have either been discouraged, harmed, suppressed, oppressed, abused, exiled, marginalized, discouraged by their communities of worship, family members, society at large, from entering into some kind of spiritual companioning, comfort, leadership. I realized these are the folks with the gold. Some of them know it, some of them don't know it. And I kind of looked into I wish I could, you'll remember better than I do, Beck, the story of taking the exiles taking the gold to build the new temple. And I have to look up the details because I didn't know I was going to quote that tonight. But that started to really resonate with me, that from a place of exile, the gold can be brought back to rebuild the temple. And that's in the Hebrew tradition, Hebrew scriptures. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing that there is gold there. There's also a lot of pain and a lot of wounds that people are carrying that can prevent them from building. But that's another story.
I have a lot of questions to ask you, Francis, and we may have to have you back for another session, but I just felt impressed by Spirit to ask you a couple questions that
Yeah.
we didn't rehearse earlier or talk about. So if you're like, well, we're not going to go there tonight, Beck, that's okay. It's another
That's
episode.
fine.
But I would love for you to share a little bit with us about places where you found God that were unexpected or
Hmm.
places that you found God where you were told not to look.
Oh, yeah. Oof. I'm not sure where this is going, but I have this memory popping in my head right now. When I was in a more evangelical church, the church that ultimately churched me, um, they there was a couple of women that I met with who were prayer ministers. They were of a different tradition than I would even say is me now, but they were so gifted, such deep people of prayer. They did a lot of healing of memories. Their names were both Anne, and I met with them regularly. And we did a lot of work where I accessed an image of who I might become. And I remember one time seeing an image of who I might become, and she was so free, and she was like surrounded. It was like a painting because I was surrounded with like swirls of stars and feathers and leaves, kind of just like if someone draws a painting of someone and it's all swirling out of them, and I was just completely free. And I remember thinking, that is so beautiful. I know that's who I am. What would it take me to get there? I couldn't imagine getting quite there. And I think for me, the unexpected places that have slowly started to unlock, because now I could actually say, ooh, I think I feel like that. I think I feel like that woman. Um, I think that it's always been where I felt the most like I was doing some I was doing some deep shadowy work, exploring um, what it means to be. First of all, I identify as queer, so I mean that I've known forever. But exploring what all the implications of that are, and lack of convention, and really honestly putting myself in some situations where I had to learn some hard lessons, learn where my boundaries were, learn where other people's boundaries were in painful ways. I've learned in some messy situations. Um, some of them I'm proud of the way I handled. Some of them I'm like, oh, now I can see why that invited conflict, those decisions. I think I've learned more from just firsthand experience of trying to figure out the why to my every question. Why can't I do this? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do why do I have to why do the 10 commandments matter? Well, I had to just decide that what mattered to me was figuring out what Jesus's commands were. And so yeah, I feel like I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here, but unexpected places for me were always in my own deconstruction and my own willingness to push further and to take bigger risks and to apologize and lose my fragility over being wrong when I stepped too far or stepped on someone's toes. Yeah.
I really love that. I um metanoia, repentance as it's
Hmm.
translated means to like change our mind. And it seems like as I'm listening to you, it seemed like there were opportunities given to you to go deeper that changed your mind, that had a
Hmm.
new place of opening, right? A new place of
Yeah.
repentance or change or
Yeah.
freedom or whatever
Yeah.
you want to
Freedom.
call
Yeah.
it. That's really
Hmm.
great. I had an experience. I was a young seminarian at a Pentecostal seminary, and I was in Chicago, and I wanted to go to Chinatown. So I was without a car, so I got on the L and I went to Chinatown, and we were in town for a conference on urban ministry, and I met a lot of really great people there. But I just decided to go to Chinatown, and when I got off the L train, I wanted to find a place that had really good egg rolls, and so I was just kind of
Hmm.
walking around looking, and I saw a Buddhist temple that was wide open, and I was like, oh, and I was like, I'll just go in here, and I walked in, and it was the first time I was faced with an image of um uh, Bhatsavata. Am I saying it right?
Hmm.
And it was talking the story about descending into hell, darkness
Hmm.
to help out with the
Hmm.
souls. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
my gosh, this is Philippians 2. This is kenosis. This is, you know, can't ascend unless you descend kind of a thing going
Yeah.
on here, above and below. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, this is so very Jesus-y. And I just had this like moment of connectivity with that and thoughts. And I remember going back and talking to a professor about it who was very, trying to toe the line on doctrine for that particular denomination. And he was like, that most definitely was not like Jesus. And I was like, sure was. But, again, I was a seminarian, so I shut my mouth. But yeah, like you, I had opportunities to deconstruct and change my mind and, you know,
Yes.
yeah. Okay,
I
I have
love
another
that
question.
take on that.
Oh, thank you. I have
Yeah.
another a question for you if you're okay with it. Again, one I didn't ask about in advance, but
Yeah. Fine.
I wanted to see you and I have talked and we're friends and we're pretty open with one another about different things. And I know that you honor your ancestors as I have attempted to
Hmm.
honor my ancestors in many ways. And I know there's a lot of Christians who, particularly those who come out of like Christian fundamentalism or things like that, who have wondered about how they honor their ancestors or how they begin to work in their
Mm.
bloodline or
Hmm.
things of that nature. I was wondering if you'd kind of tell like your process around that, like where you
Yeah.
went from your thinking to where you are now, and any
Yeah.
rituals you might like to share with us.
Sure. Oh gosh. You'll have to stop me if I go off on, there's no telling. Because when I start thinking about this, I feel like a thousand different pulls. But so I had the benefit of having parents who were literature teachers who gave me good things to read when I was young. So I was reading um Beloved by Toni Morrison. In like high school, I was reading The Color Purple when I was 12 or 13. I was reading let's see, Lee. Why can't I say her last name right now? She's an Appalachian writer. I can almost say it. I'll say it by the end of the podcast, where she writes about Pentecostal and like wild open experiences. For me, Zora Neale Hurston, I was just really comfortable with the idea that you could connect because my parents were, my mom especially was giving me these books, and that I had connections. I don't think I really explored them a lot until my grandfather, the one I mentioned earlier, Papa, Frank Smathers, who was an Appalachian born Methodist preacher, circuit rider, first person to out of his family to leave the holler. I don't think he called it a holler. I'm calling it a holler. That may not be fair. It was a cove, Dutch cove, but it was also a holler. Um, and when he and I became very connected, interestingly, our names are Frank and then Francis. I went into ministry when he died. I felt him convey his presence to me in some way, like a handoff of his ministry or something. It was so powerful. So I can't say that I specifically call people by name all the time. I sometimes do, but I feel like this, I feel wide open to this sense of connection, especially that started kind of first. And then I started discovering later in life more about my actual DNA ancestry. And it made sense out of a lot of experiences I've had because I have French Canadian, Jewish, primarily French Canadian and Jewish, and then all the Scotch, Irish, English. I One of the rituals that comes to mind for me, whew, there's a lot of them. Let's see, which one do I want to share? I'm very dynamic with my rituals. Like if something comes up, I just do it. I don't know that I have anything set, but I do believe, and I have consistently acted on, a sense of my ancestors guiding me and sometimes guiding me to repair some of the things that happened on their watch. And I have had a sense of some of my ancestors who were definitely in problematic in their activities with segregation, with preaching for segregation. And I've discovered a lot there. Um, I have felt such an overwhelming sense of call um, to be a troublemaker. And because of my early exposure, mainly through reading and community, um, a healing troublemaker. And I feel them with me. So there have been times where I've actually written rituals for the public to participate in repentance and repair, but I feel like I'm hearing their voices. Yeah, so that's one example. There's been other stuff with my Jewish ancestry where I've done some, prayer work asking for healing of trauma, sort of backwards and forwards. Um, and then if I'm ever involved in anything that I think they'd be interested in, I just ask them to join me. So,
I love that. That's awesome. That's so cool. Um, I recently, well, maybe about 2 years ago, found out that I had some Ashkenazi
hmm.
Jewish ancestors on one side of the family, and then on the other side of the family, some Sephardic. And I was like, this is wild. And
Hmm.
I really got the impression that they had to assimilate in order to just survive in
Hmm.
Appalachia. And as a lot of people had to, and I think about that and I'm like, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my ancestry is Ashkenazi Jews as well,
very cool.
in Ukraine and Russia and then New York.
Very cool. That's awesome and exciting too.
Mhm.
Well, I'd like to pivot now, and I'd like for you to share more about Order of Hildegard.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat familiar with it, but I'd love for our audience to know more about it, especially people that are interested in like chaplaincy and what that looks like, that
Yeah.
maybe they don't have, an ordaining body or something. Would you talk more about that?
Yes, 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 yes. And as you're asking me to do that, I'm remembering how we first became friends, and it's just so cool to me to be sitting here having this conversation. So I'm having a little bit of a moment, and feels really good. Thank you. I reached out to you and just talked to you on the phone one day many years ago. So this is making me happy. Thank you. Um, let's see here. The Order of Hildegard. We've been in formation since 2020, and like that, we were birthed, in COVID. So we're now seeing some of the results of graduating cohorts and what that looks like, and where they might want to plug in, and then all the work we need to do to create like after graduation community. So we're a community of practice. I'm going to read you our mission statement. It's a little wordy, it breaks all the rules, but I feel as though I should read it, or just to get us off on the right foot. The Order of Hildegard is an unaffiliated community of practice which exists to center, celebrate, and develop the interfaith and interspiritual, cross vocational spiritual leadership of those marginalized by traditional religious structures, such as LGBTQIA, people of the global majority, people with disabilities and neurodiversities, and those otherwise disillusioned with harmful puritanical patriarchal religious structures. We transform public and private spiritual ethics and practices in a wide range of settings and traditions, cultivating a vibrant, widespread community while sharing resources for the thriving of our members and to impact the larger culture. Rule breaking mission statement, but we really want to, it's there's, when you're dealing with the intersectionality of embracing so many different maligned and marginalized groups of folks, centering and celebrating them, not inclusion, but centering and celebrating. And then also saying we're interfaith, interspiritual, and cross vocational. Like, I mean, you could be pushing a lot of people's buttons that way because, some folks really feel comfortable with rules and institutions. We, of course, have our own, but our goal is to create this community of practice. So the long-term vision was, before we decided to do community chaplaincy, the long-term vision was to create a space where people could be trained and developed, as I mentioned before. But how are we going to do it? Because we also wanted it to be community. So we thought, well, then we need to start creating leaders to lead this community. I certainly don't want to be the only one doing that. So that's where community chaplaincy was born. To be honest, I know that other people use that phrase and have that training. I had not heard of it. I hadn't heard of anyone else doing community chaplaincy. So I thought we were, really, really unique, but it was a move of the spirit, you might say. And lots of people started doing it. But the idea with community chaplaincy, what we knew is we didn't want people to feel like they had to have a background in theology. Not that theology isn't great and super important, I do think it is, but we felt we could distill some of the most important aspects, especially of like post deconstruction faith support, into a 2-year program without it necessarily being an institution sponsored by a church or with a track towards a specific church's ordination. But we also wanted to conclude, those of us who had been to theology school, all the things maybe we didn't get at the time, things I think have gotten better, but we wanted to include, how a deeper, more inward spiritual development, like you might find in spiritual direction training, for a sustainable spirituality for self and community building, addressing the image of God within us, addressing very directly racism and homophobia and the deconstruction elements that are necessary, ableism as well. Um, we wanted to take a non-traditional, in terms of traditional institutional approach to learning. In other words, no one has to be an expert. So we can take down the guard about, I have to know the answer, and let people research and study together, and ask and learn to ask great questions. So that's just a glimpse into some of the things that we study mysticism, we study why it's a sustainable spirituality across the world, and we very specifically study Christianity, pre-Constantinian Christianity, and what has happened since then, and why that's important, even if you're not a Christian, because we're an interfaith, to understand the landscape we're in and what tools we need to um, support people walking in this landscape. So that is our 2-year chaplaincy, community chaplaincy program. We start one every fall and every January. Um, I should stop and let you ask me any questions about that, because there's a special one we have coming up I'd love to tell you about, but I could go on too long if I don't take a
Well,
breath.
let me write down the special
Okay.
one so we can address that. But for people that
Hmm.
are already, you've got them kind of itching a little bit. I mean, the details are of course on the website, but let's say, I'm thinking about joining the cohort and I'm concerned about time commitment. And then are there
Right,
internship hours? Do I have to go to a hospital to do CPE or something?
right.
Like, what does that look like for you all?
Yeah, those are the questions people come in with, and which we've learned to address more directly on the head in the beginning, because most people think of chaplaincy as the very important model of working in a hospital or in a prison or with the military, perhaps. We have folks who are doing that, who want to come through our program. Sometimes they want to come through our program because they need a place of affiliation, which is what you mentioned before. Not everybody wants to be a United Methodist or a Church of Christ or a Unitarian Universalist. Some folks want to be interspiritual, which is very common these days, like for the reasons we've already discussed a little bit, practices that come in from other spaces. And the Order of Hildegard, while those folks may not need our 2-year program, can become a place of endorsement if the body that you're applying to will accept it. We're fairly new. Some places do. I've already been accepted somewhere that I applied for a job as a hospital chaplain because of my endorsement from my own organization. But so that's one thing. If people are thinking, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to be a hospital chaplain? Do I want to be, what does it mean to be a community chaplain? Well, that's about the only relationship right now we have with hospital chaplaincies, hospice chaplaincies, is that we can be an endorsing body. That said, we're working on developing relationships, especially with hospice chaplaincy, where there's a shortage, to where they could look more seriously at the people coming out of our program because they're amazing. Okay, so that's one thing. People can take our program and they don't have to become a chaplain. They can just take the 2 years and say, thank you so much, love y'all, see you later, or I want to hang out, but I don't want to be ordained. Or they can choose to be ordained and become a more official, endorsed Order of Hildegard chaplain, in which case they're going to be, if they choose to be, on our public registry, which is in formation with all the contact links. They're going to get opportunities that come up for us as an organization, which are just starting. They're going to get ongoing continuing education. We're going to back them. We're going to be in community together, growing this community of practice together. It's kind of like we're not sure what all that's going to look like yet. We're building it. uh, so, how does that? How's that for an answer?
I love that. And, um, some of the best planes that I've been on have been the ones that we build while we're flying. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And I should also say, yeah, we're building it while we're flying it. It's very exciting because I can tell very needed in this landscape, and I can see already where we're going to be plugged into some spaces because we're a little bit ahead of some other institutions who are trying this work. But we also don't have the red tape a lot of people have, because we are just the Order of Hildegard. We are totally unaffiliated. It's a disadvantage in some ways because we don't have big money behind us. It's an advantage because we don't have big money behind us. Um, but your question about chaplaincy, I also want to say this: community chaplains can be anybody, anywhere. The vision is that we want to see people who see themselves as spiritual companions, threshold tenders, community leaders, community builders, exactly where they already are. and can reimagine themselves as a chaplain just exactly where they are, or maybe where they want to be. That could change. But, teachers, not, well, teachers is not a great example because there's a big, that's a tough one. Okay, so why don't we just put that one aside? Not so much going to talk about the public school system here, but folks who are in any setting where they are guiding folks, whether they're yoga teachers, whether they're paralegals, whether they're artists, people who have folks around them anywhere in their community. And we also help people reimagine the ways that they can engage because their sense of purpose really changes in the program as well. So,
I love that. That's awesome. So, you got a cohort that just started, and then you have a cohort that'll start up in January, and people can find out more about that on the website. You did mention a special thing that's going to be happening with Order of Hildegard, so I'd love for you to talk about that.
thank you so much for that. Well, we do have one starting in the fall. This cohort is just now shaping up. So, I'm going to tell you where it is in this kind of emerging stage. We are working with some folks in post conflict reconciliation work in Ireland to create a cohort that has an emphasis on co-learning with folks there, that using um, learning from the tools that have been gained in reconciliation work in Ireland. So we have some folks who are associated with the Corrymeela community and with other organizations in Ireland where there's just such a wealth of experience. People are living inside of stories and have an understanding of what it takes to rebuild that not only we need in this country right now in the midst of such division, but people really need all over the world. And so this cohort would be the same offering as we normally have. You can move from there to becoming an Order of Hildegard chaplain, or you can move through it as a spiritual director, or anyone else, anyone who wants the cohort. Um, but you'll also get this conversation and co-learning, this international co-learning about peace and reconciliation. And time
Is it a
commitment,
travel immersive experience?
we're hoping we yes, the 2 years will end with a pilgrimage to Ireland. So absolutely. And we've got that someone already working on that. So I mean, this is all, like I said, it's all being cooked right now, but we're hoping to unroll it like in just a few days. So we have some great people working on it. And it would be the commitment for any cohort, it would be the same with this one, is 2 to 4 hours a week. Most people do it with a full-time job. Sometimes schedules work out to join a cohort, sometimes they don't. It just depends a little bit on the feedback we get from everyone who enrolls, picking the times that work the best for everybody. Some of the learning is asynchronous, some of it is live, and we try to work with people if they miss a module. So there's no writing, it's all relational, it's all um, it's all about engagement. So,
That's fantastic. Thanks for that.
absolutely.
Well, as I've got a few more questions for you, and then I
Yeah.
want to ask about kind of what's giving you energy these days.
Mm.
But one other question I have for you is, I know that you're a safe person for people who are interreligious or people who are, you know, maybe they're a Christ follower, but their particular rituals are more earth centered.
Yeah.
Maybe they follow the seasons, and are maybe aligned in that way, or maybe they're kind of combining some of their places. Um, can you just name some groups of people you that you definitely think would be welcome in your place? And I know those groups, and I
Oh,
could quickly name them, but I would just love for you to say like who all's welcome, because I honestly believe, Francis, with you that so many people are welcome, but I'd just love for you to name some people that have passed, like kind of maybe some groupings that have come through the program with you.
yeah, and let me ask you this. Are you thinking more about like practices or demographics in terms of where I go first?
Maybe practices, and then you can
Yeah.
definitely do demographics, but I mean, um I have a lot of people that have to be very secretive in some of their practices because
Yeah,
they live in very rural parts of the world, or they feel uncomfortable with who they are. They may love Jesus, but they also might, they might have a
yes.
little witchy woo woo stuff going
Yeah.
on. So yeah.
That is we are such a, we are a true wilderness organization in the sense that I have yet to see it be a problem for anyone coming in with whatever their practices are. We're such an accepting and celebrating place for folks who are a little bit Jesus, a little bit pagan, a little bit witch, or a lot witch, and or atheist. Honestly, we are welcoming to all paths of goodwill, whatever spirituality mix you've got going on. Um, Personally, this is my personal faith. First of all, I'm very much interfaith forward. I believe in it. And the reason I believe it is because personally my faith is more like early Christ follower, where I believe that's what he was. So I I feel like I'm fulfilling my own personal flavor of faith by being a universalist welcomer and celebrating people understanding God in their own technicolor way. So um, humanists, uh, obviously all the world religions that a lot of places would name as just the interfaith sort of mix. Obviously, all of those. I think the only type of person who wouldn't feel real comfortable here, regardless of what their faith upbringing is someone who has to be right, who has to be certain and isn't curious. And we really look for the evidence of the curiosity and the desire to grow, and to know ourselves so that we can be in better relationship with others in those applications. So, does that answer?
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing. I really love that. Of course, we've shared, and I'm a very mystical person, but I've just had a lot of really interesting soul opening experiences in my life, and I think you are somebody who embraces people who are neurodivergent,
Yes.
queer,
Thank you.
people of
Yes.
all different sort of demographics and spiritual experiences, and even people who are more, I guess you'd say, logical, rational, and
Yeah,
analytical. You also embrace. So I
absolutely.
think of you as a very loving and open person. So I wanted to
Thank
I
you.
wanted to shout that out.
Thank you. We do. I mean, honestly, when you're trying to do all that in one community, I'm not going to say it's not going to get spicy. Sometimes we've got very scientific, rational people over here not liking what some of the mystical woo woo people are doing. And there's maybe a little eye rolling, but I don't see a lot of it to each other. I see people trying to just listen and learn and lean in a little bit. And it's beautiful. But yes, everyone in our mission statement, we are centering and celebrating. So,
I I've had, like I said, plenty of mystical experiences and plenty
yeah.
of rational, logical
Yeah,
experiences.
me too.
I, at one point in time, I remember like telling God, I was like, God, please, like I had kind of um, teetered with atheism for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then I found psychedelics, and it was hard to be an
Mm-hmm.
atheist when you're, tripping balls or ovaries, tripping ovaries on mushrooms. So that was difficult. But I think for me, I remember when I first kind of came back to faith in a way, and I was just like, God, please make me something rational and logical,
Mm.
like a Lutheran or an Episcopalian. And then I met mystical Lutherans and Episcopalians, so I was like, what
Mm-hmm.
do I know about whatever? But anyways,
Absolutely.
who
I we-
knows?
I really I, I will say, like, this is, I feel like I'm giving away some of our Order of Hildegard's secrets here, but one of the things that's like firmly in our curriculum now, when we started off thinking, how are we going to study the world religions? It would be appropriating for any of us to try and teach them. I have a small staff of me and a bunch of volunteers. How do we not screw this up? And then it became really apparent we don't need to teach world religions. We need to teach what power over and control looks like in any religion. And we need to teach what sustainable spirituality is in any religion, because that's really a more universalist approach. So we use the phrase sustainable spirituality, and it's almost always coded mysticism. I mean, I'm not saying you got to be a mystic to be at the Order of Hildegard. You absolutely don't. But there's a lot of people who find that connection to each other and to God as a larger than life experience, larger than religion experience, to be a sustainable way forward for humanity. And I believe that. So I appreciate you coming out about that.
I'm so grateful that that you were also talking and kind of about this like power, institutional structure, hierarchy versus this more with model of leadership. Um, and I've shared with you that I've had some trauma in my life with men, especially as a young person. But I had probably in 2022, I had like a psychotic break, and there was some things that were circling in that area where trauma really like kind of broke me again in a way, or broke me open, I guess you'd say, and there was
Mm-hmm.
kind of some openings. But when you're manic, sometimes there's symbols just have so much connectivity, and it's just you're just constantly leaping from symbol to symbol to symbol. And I kept seeing arrows and swords
Mm-hmm.
and lingams, or
Mm-hmm.
penal penis symbols,
Mm-hmm.
and it just struck me as how violent
Mm-hmm.
that those things can be when they're not, when it's not love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to do some real healing around that. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, this way of the sword this violence is so ingrained in war making, in the way that we handle conflict, the way that we do church, like the way that many institutions and businesses run. Like it's horrible. And then, in the feminine, there's kind of like the receiving nature,
Mm-hmm.
opening, a
Mm-hmm.
place of bringing birth, like
Mm-hmm.
nurturing, like hips. I mean, like there's just so much
Mm-hmm.
beauty in the feminine as well. And I just think I don't know. There has power can be good,
Mm-hmm.
but oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, it has just been used to destroy and hurt and
Mm-hmm.
dominate, as you point out, and empire and all that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so much behind that, like rape culture is so much
Yeah.
that way, and just the objectification of people, like to use them, to seize them. Someone said, and I think it was Erin Oakley, who's a spiritual director here in Atlanta. She said, how we treat the earth is how we treat women. And I was like,
Yes. Ah,
mind
yeah.
blown. And I was
I'm
like, my
glad.
gosh, like we have to stop hurting the earth, and we have to stop hurting women. And in my Christian tradition, I think about like Romans 8, like how all creation eagerly awaits the revealing of the children of God. And I'm like,
Yes.
maybe we're the effing children of God. Maybe we're the ones that's
Yeah.
supposed to help, heal the earth and respect the earth and go back to the elder teachings and the elder wisdom and our indigenous
Mm-hmm.
ancestors of all lands who really were so much more connected. Anyway, I
Yes.
just went on a tirade. Sorry,
Oh,
Francis.
no, I mean, that is that's the heart of what I care the most about. What you just described is this connection to the feminine, not to the exclusion of the masculine, but as, to learn about the feminine. And I'm very lucky. I got to finish a doctorate degree a year ago, and my whole focus of my thesis, first of all, part of it was on shame because I have spent a lot of time working with courage building vis-a-vis Brene Brown, as a member of her independent facilitators team, which has been a joy. But because of that work and because of doing that work so much with people, I became fascinated with shame. I became fascinated with what drives shame and what's the real problem, what got us here, what got us to this power over, what's the disease, and it's not sin the way we were taught it. So what is it? So I spent months just like digging into the Hebrew scriptures and geeking out and feeling all my Jewish ancestry like humming, and um, I dug into what I feel like is original sin and its original shame. I feel like shame is the original sin of the church, and that there are a couple of big drivers of shame, and the one that I focused on was misogyny-driven shame. And yeah, it's just supremacy. It's a version of supremacy, but it's so at the heart of who we are. Relationship to land was a huge part of that work. So you're speaking my language.
Wow, that's really powerful, Francis.
Love it.
I know our time's coming to an end. I want to talk about, I want to hear from you about the projects that are giving you excitement, what's
Oh,
coming up for you, again, how people can get in touch with you. And then, beyond Order of Hildegard, you've got this consultation business. I mean,
yes.
you can help people walk through conflict. Yeah, you've helped me and another person do some moderation.
Hmm.
you're a coach, a
Hmm.
spiritual director, like all these things. So tell us about what's giving you energy and then
Okay.
what you're offering.
Yeah, yeah. Oof. Well, I love to feed my woo-woo side, but I love when I can ground it in something that a lot of people can appreciate. I love finding the language to translate, the mystic side to people who would like a little more permission, but also to stay away from some of the gatekeeping that you find in all spirituality. So, my new fun creative project that's giving me life is taking inspiration from Hildegard's uh, fascination with spirituality as being akin to the greening of life. Greening, viriditas, is the word that she used so often. It was a word that was in use then, but she used it a lot to describe our spirituality. We're connected to the earth. We're connected to the more than human creation. And something that just came up without trying in this work in the community, especially with some of the pain that we've all been through in the last few years, is I used to do Reiki and I still do, but I used to do healing prayer and all these things. And then this new kind of modality kind of bubbled up in me, leaning into sacred imagination and wordless prayer and non-supremacist prayer. So I developed this modality called Viriditas Practitioner. Um, and it's really just a way of learning how to lean into trauma informed community building through ritual, hands on healing with consent, and using non supremacist prayer energy in the spirit of Hildegard. And I'm so excited about it. It's so beautiful. People love it. People with really big brains love it, and people with big woo woo spirits love it. And it's given me life. So that's one thing. And coaching is giving me life because coaching taught me to ask good questions. And I always used to think coaching sounded kind of silly and overly popular. And I assumed that coaches told people what to do. And I made all kinds of assumptions about coaches. And coaches are freaking amazing. They learn how to ask questions and die to themselves to mirror back to the other person. And it was hard freaking work, and I love coaching people. So yes, I'm available for coaching and I can bring all the things I just discussed to the table, but it's mainly about the other person. So both of those things are giving me life. People can find me on the orderofhildegard.org. They can email me at francis at theorderofhildegard.org. On Instagram, my coaching page is coach underscore Abbess underscore Francis, and that's where I'm starting to put things out there on a personal level. And yeah, order Hildegard on Instagram, and the Order of Saint Hildegard on Facebook, because we're both, otherwise known as. So the only order of Hildegard. She was, by the way, I didn't say this. She became a saint in 2012. So there was no established order of Hildegard, and I'm so thankful for the way that all came together. So,
Okay, Instagram handle one more time,
yeah,
basically for me.
yes, um,
Coach.
yes. Whoops, I just lost it. I'm almost there. It is Coach
Okay,
underscore
okay,
Abbess Abbess
okay.
underscore Francis with an E.
Awesome. That's rad.
I have sliding scale opportunities for people who want a little bit of support. And yes, I also love to facilitate. Gosh, I love to do contract work in churches. That's kind of my biggest geek out is being able to go meet with churches and help them reimagine church life without shame and take some of the coursework that we offer our chaplains and condense it and bring it into churches to share, possibly instead of Sunday schools, that kind of stuff. So,
Love that. Love that. I want to share a dream with you real fast, and then I'm going
yeah.
to ask you to share whatever you'd like to share, whether it's a dream or a poem or a thought or a last whatever. But I had a dream. I'm not sure if it was 2019 or 2018, and there was a white wooden frame church, probably late 1800s, 1900s. It had red doors
Oh,
on it. And inside there was kind of unlevel, floors that went down towards the altar. It was red carpet, red pews, red kneeling boards, and there was a woman who was preaching. And I came in there and I was listening to her preaching, and an old, nearly feeble white man stood up and he said to her, "You can't be in here," and he was just being so loud, and we don't like this kind of preaching. And there was a couple other angry men that were like, rah, rah, rah. And she said, "Okay, fine." And she invited anybody that would go with her out into the woods, and women and children like went with her out into the woods, and they were singing songs and they were teaching and they were learning, and there was food aplenty. But I can just remember that dream, and me being a participant in the dream, I was kind of like, I remember laying prostrate, not prostate, was not laying on anybody's prostate. I was laying prostrate in that church just because I was like, why are you kicking the spirit out of the church? But the spirit left the church with that female preacher and she went into the woods. And I just wanted to share my dream with you as encouragement, because I think what you are doing is it's a holy and beautiful thing.
oh,
So, yeah.
oh, oh, yeah. First of all, thank you so much. I mean, there's no way to respond to that other than just immerse in it. After we hang up, I'm just gonna, because, yeah, that's, I resonate, with how it feels to leave and hope, that there's something out there. And, I think the thing that I'm gonna share is that, one time a few years back, I asked God, because even as things were getting better and I was doing new work, I just there's this tug, there's always this difficulty in the world for me. I mean, everybody feels this in their own way, but for me, it's felt as every time I get too busy and too driven, I lose who I am. And I prayed one day, and do a lot of praying, I do a lot of meditating, a lot of stuff. And I think I was going through a season where I felt like God, the universe, the divine was saying I was a dreamer. Like that message had been coming for a while. And it crystallized in this moment where the message was, no, actually, that's your job, is to dream things into life. So don't feel bad about making sure you have space to dream, because if you're not dreaming, and this may be everybody for all I know, but I just know, if I don't have the space, the spiritual space, the love, the lack of scarcity. So what is that? The sense of enough, the joy, the presence, then I won't be dreaming into life what needs to be dreamed into this flesh, literally dreamed into us and into reality. And I kind of embrace this idea of it's okay to be a dreamer, because a dreamer is actually getting shit done. So thank you for that. And also, I'm remembering a lot about that now. And I'll end with this, that very week or something, I went on a podcast and I was teaching Brene stuff for Joan Gary at the Nonprofit Leadership Lab. And she stopped that class and she played the ukulele and she played Dream a Little Dream with me. Is that the words? Dream a little dream with me? Yeah. And that song had been going through my head as a part, and I'm just telling you. So even out there in corporate, corporate-ish nonprofit world, the message was still there. we're gonna get it. We're gonna get that message one way or the other. We're all dreamers.
Wow. Well, I love that. And I love you, and I'm grateful for
I
your
love
time
you.
tonight.
Oh,
You
this was
are
such an honor. I am so
no,
excited to
you.
be here.
I'm honored to be around you. You're rad.
Oh,
So,
you're
all right, all the audience folks, go find Frances, see what she's about. Also, tell us some times where you found God in unexpected places. Tell us about how you've left the institution to go out in the wilderness. We want to hear from you. Frances, many blessings upon you. I'll be talking to you soon. I can't wait to see you in about a month and a half and get a
yeah.
hug in person.
Yep.
So,
Me too.
all
Yep.
right.
All
All love
right.
to you. Thank you so
You
much.
too, Beck. Bye.